many of Gonzaga's soldiers deserted the clash, joining instead the looting of the baggage train and leaving the Italian main assault outnumbered.
Oh no!
The king
No! The Italian Wars. 1495. I said that I was gonna go do some videos on this.
War, diplomacy and intrigue.
It's about time.
The Italian Wars of the 16th century is one of the richest periods of European history, and
I don't know about this.
Peninsula into the grand European scene.
That's crazy, bro. I don't know about this. The Italian Wars. Really? Okay. No, I actually look forward to seeing this
as
more.
some dynastic claims between the two greatest European dynasties of the time soon developed into a conflict that revolutionized European warfare and the diplomatic system. Welcome to our first episode in our series on the Italian Wars, in which we will cover the First Italian War and the Battle of Fornovo. This series is so dense it's no surprise if it gets hairy, but that doesn't mean you should join it in
Sponsor. Click
Manscaped.com. The Italian peninsula of the Middle Ages was divided between the fragmented north, split into numerous fiefs and city-states under the nominal sovereignty of the Holy Roman Emperor, the kingdoms of Sicily and Naples in the south, and the Papal State that had jurisdiction over parts of central Italy. The 14th century was a period of consolidation for the biggest powers of Italy, especially for Milan, Venice, Florence, and the Pope, who expanded their dominions over the smaller cities. The friction that arose from these expansions continued into the next century and culminated with the Lombard Wars between Milan and Venice. Following the signing of the Peace of Lodi in 1454, a balance emerged between the five regional powers: the Duchy of Milan, the Republic of Venice, the Papal State, the Kingdom of Naples, and the Republic of Florence. A mutual defense pact, the Italian League, was formed between them, and the 4 decades that followed were characterized by diplomatic and military balance, overseen by Lorenzo de' Medici. Conflicts were kept small and regionalized, while the Renaissance was flourishing in all Italian centers of culture. This
okay. Yeah, this is the Renaissance period, isn't it? Oh, wow. Okay. So the Renaissance were flourishing at the same time that okay.
balance was, however, broken in the last decade of the century following the death of the Florentine statesman. The spark for the First Italian War was the dynastic succession of the Duchy of Milan. In 1476, Gian Galeazzo Sforza succeeded his father, Galeazzo Maria, as Duke of Milan at the age of 7. His uncle, Ludovico Sforza, took over the regency from his mother and introduced the young duke to a life of pleasures and games, tampering with his education and making him ineffective and uninterested in the governance of the duchy. In 1489, Gian Galeazzo married Isabel of Aragon, granddaughter of the King of Naples, Ferrante. With all the power in the hands of Ludovico, the energetic Isabel sought the support of her family in ousting the regent. With the looming threat of a Neapoli's intervention and Florence's anti-Milanese stance, Ludovico worried that he would lose his grip on power. To defend his interests, he and his father-in-law, Ercole d'Este, solicited for years an old friend of the Sforza family, the King of France, Charles VIII, to come to Italy and take over the throne of Naples, a strategy already used in the past to put pressure on the Aragonese house.
Bro, trying to keep track of all this. I have a question for you all that know this period of time by heart. How do you remember all these details by heart? How do you do that? Because I'm trying to, oh my goodness. Europe just looks so fragmented, and then you have all of this happening right now. How do y'all remember that? Because I know there's a bunch of y'all in my comments, y'all just know freaking almost everything, apparently. I mean, granted, a lot of y'all are Europeans, so obviously you're gonna know a lot more from your history, obviously. But still, it's just like, how do you know? How can you remember all of this, man? Especially if you read it from books. I feel like if you read this from books too, it'll be a lot more harder to remember.
The Kingdom of Naples, nominally vassal of the Papal State, had originated from the Norman conquests in southern Italy, and had later been contested by the houses of Anjou-Capet and Anjou-Valois, and by the Crown of Aragon since 1282. In 1442, René of Anjou had lost the throne to King Alfonso V of Aragon, and conflicts between the two Mediterranean powers had followed intermittently. After the extinction of the male line of the House of Anjou-Valois in 1481, the kings of France inherited claims to the throne of Naples, together with the Duchy of Provence and other fiefs. The kings of France of the Valois dynasty had fought the English during the 100 Years' War, but by 1453, the Grand...
Still blows my mind to this very day how France just, like, how France won the 100 Years' War. I swear, I feel like the 100 Years' War is that thing where everyone, like, if it did went England's way and we were in an alternate timeline, like, nobody wouldn't predict France to win the 100 Years' War. Like,
gradual reconquest of the French mainland was mostly completed. The centralization of authority into the hands of the crown continued in the following decade by limiting the power of the powerful nobles and inheriting some of the lands of the Duke of Burgundy following his death, causing conflict with the Holy Roman Emperor. By the last decade of the century, the Kingdom of France had started to integrate the Duchy of Brittany and reformed its army from its old feudal nature, giving the king the resources to partake in an expedition that would have been impossible some years before. King Charles VIII was captivated by the opportunity of expanding into Italy, which up to that point had been limited to the Angevin claims and to influence the Genoese Republic. So after a few years of preparation, and having secured peace treaties with his neighbours, he departed France in August 1494 at the head of an army of around 30,000 men, including 8,000 Swiss mercenaries and a modern artillery park. The claimed goal was to take over Naples and to obtain a foothold from where to stage a crusade against the Ottoman Turks, which was largely propagandized as the final objective of the expedition.
Anyone with 10,000...
The Ottomans, man. The Ottomans. How many crusades have Europe launched against the Ottomans, man?
Charles led his army through the lands of the infant Duke of Savoy, whose mother received the king and his large army cordially, and then reached the Orleanese exclave of Asti on the 9th of September, while his cousin Louis of Orleans led another army by sea and reached Genoa, at the time controlled by Milanese governors. In the meantime, many French companies had already arrived in Italy to secure strongpoints, and Ludovico Sforza had started to recruit soldiers for the expedition. The King of Naples, Alfonso II, who had succeeded his father the same year, had not sat idly while the French prepared. He allied himself with Pope Alexander VI, better known as Rodrigo de Borja, and made preparations to delay the French advance by hiring condottieri from Lombardy and Lazio. He also sent his son Ferdinando, Duke of Calabria, and the condottiero Gian Giacomo Trivulzio to Romagna with the objective of invading Lombardy. At the same time, his brother Federico, 4,000 men, and the Genoese exiled nobles Cardinal Paolo Fragoso and Obietto Fieschi went to Liguria with the objective of starting a revolt to overthrow the Milanese and French garrisons in Genoa, which supplied the French fleet. A failed attempt to take Porto Venere in July was followed by the occupation of Rapallo on the 5th of September, but 3 days later, Louis of Orleans, with 3,000 Swiss mercenaries and Genoese Milanese militias, defeated the force and destroyed the town, crushing any hopes the Neapolitans had to ignite revolts in the region. Some French and Milanese contingents skirmished in September and October, with the joint Neapolitan, Florentine and Papal army in Emilia, culminating with the sack of Modena. The castle in the possession of Caterina Sforza, Lady of Imola and Forli, was devastated by the French troops, so she decided to drop her support for Naples and instead sided with Charles, limiting Ferdinando's support in the area. The complete destruction of the surrendered town and the slaughter of both the population and the defenders was a calculated strategy by the French king, not wanting to play by Italian rules of war, which was characterized by defense, containment, maneuver, attrition, and backdoor diplomacy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I really do like enjoying seeing France really be like France in action, basically, right? Most people just know France as like World War II and how France surrendered. But I didn't really know in detail, but I always knew that France had a good track record of victories. But I just never really knew. So now that I'm seeing France being the juggernaut that it used to be in action, although granted, there's plenty of times where France or the French, a few French have made a lot of icky moves. I still enjoy seeing France. I do like this. You know, because as much as some French people can be a bit snobby, still, I do enjoy seeing France, you know, being top dog. You know what I mean? So
the king wanted to plow through the peninsula by making examples of what happened to resistance and frightening his foes, a brutal tactic called Furia Francese by the Italians. On the 21st of October, the sick Duke Gian Galeazzo Sforza died under suspicious circumstances, and his uncle Ludovico left Charles to return to Milan, where he took the title of Duke of Milan, which was confirmed by the Holy Roman Emperor. Charles, after having recovered from a month-long illness, decided to move along the western side of the peninsula through Tuscany to pressure the Florentines into submission. The Signori of Florence, Piero de' Medici, had allied himself with Alfonso, but the Florentine people were sympathetic to the French, and Piero's grip on power was shaky. Charles traversed the Apennines and found himself blocked by the formidable fortress of San Azello and the city of Sazana, where he was joined by his artillery and Swiss mercenaries by sea. The modern fortress could withstand both the French army and their artillery for months.
Wow.
Looking for a more vulnerable objective, the cannons were taken to the Florentine exclave of Fivizzano, where they were effective, and the town was conquered and destroyed with the support of the local noble Malaspina, killing the defenders and devastating other villages in the region that surrendered, with the sole objective of terrorizing the Florentines in Sazana. Piero de' Medici went by himself to the French king and surrendered the fortress, together with the cities of Sazana, Pietrasanta, Pisa and Livorno, saving the king much time he would have spent on investing the fortresses. This was not popular with the Florentine population, who expelled the Medicis and installed a republican government, influenced by the priest Savonarola. Charles traversed the territory of Lucca and then entered Pisa, hailed as a liberator from the Florentine subjugation. Here he promised Pisa freedoms, though it is probable that the freedom that the Pisans had in mind was different from what Charles had intended. By the 15th of November, Charles entered with his army into Florence, where he stipulated an agreement with the new government, keeping the Tuscan cities until the end of the campaign, while Florence would subsidy him 120,000 florins.
Have you ever wondered?
After obtaining free passage through Siena, the French army reached the northern border of Lazio, throwing Rome into chaos. The two biggest rivals of Pope Alexander, the Cardinals Asciano Sforza and Giuliano della Rovere, sided with the French and pushed for a council to reform the church and to depose the corrupt pope. The defensive line set up by
The Pope is such a joke. The Pope is such a joke. Also, if you read the Bible, it literally states that there's no need for a Pope anymore. Well, the Bible doesn't exactly say, hey, we don't need a Pope anymore, but like, I'm not like a complete expert on the Bible, but my oldest brother, he was explaining it to me because he's more better suited on that side, and he explained to me like, yeah, there's no need for a Pope anymore. He said basically like after Jesus died on the cross, I forgot what he told me, but he said it's something that happened after Jesus died on the cross. That's why we don't really need a Pope anymore. I'll probably ask him about it again. I'll like speak more about that on my future videos. It's very interesting, quite frankly. I mean, yeah, I mean, even then, it's like, dude, the Pope is such a joke. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know how anyone could take that seriously anymore. I mean, they were like the furthest thing from holy. I mean, look, man, if you're a Catholic, like, I would rather deal with an Islamic person than a Catholic person. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. Like,
Orsini quickly crumbled.
I don't have nothing against Catholics. It's just like, come on, bro. It's 2024. Like, come on, bro. You have all this information and you're still a Catholic. Like, come on, bro.
The left vanguard advanced into Umbria, and from there entered Abruzzo, which revolted from Neapolitan control. A number of nobles and condottieri defected to the French. The Roman population rioted, while the Colonna family, allies of della Rovere, had occupied Ostia in September, making the defense of the city untenable. Ferdinando was allowed to return to Naples, while Charles entered Rome on the 31st of December. After a few days, Charles managed to meet the Pope, who had barricaded himself in Castel Sant'Angelo and obtained free passage through the Papal State with provisions for his army, but he did not obtain the investiture for the kingdom that he had hoped for.
Bro, I see people say Italian men are so handsome, bro. Bro, these people do not look handsome at all. Well, granted,
After a month in Rome,
the one on the right is French, so
Charles left for Naples, where he expected stiffer resistance than he had experienced until then. However, Naples was in complete confusion. Alfonso II had abdicated in favor of his son and left for Sicily with the royal treasury. The historically pro-Angevin Neapolitan barons flocked to the French army, and the local population greeted the French as saviors. The few cases of local resistance were brutally bombarded and executed, such as the castle at Monte San Giovanni. Ferdinando, with his last 10,000 men, set up camp first at San Germano, then at Capua. But while the king was in Naples, Capua rebelled, and the condottiero Gian Giacomo Trivulzio delivered it to the French, entering their service and causing the scattering of the army. Ferdinando, having been outmaneuvered and having lost support from everyone, escaped with his court to Ischia, and at the same time, Charles entered Naples on the 22nd of February 1495 with little resistance from the defenders left
oh my goodness, the French are just having everything handed to them.
behind. In just 5 months, the French king had traversed the Italian peninsula nearly unopposed, and
What is this AI thing that I see?
any resistance against him had been pulverized. It was a political earthquake for the region, which shocked contemporaries, scared the Italian states, and would have lasting effects on the Italian peninsula. Ludovico il Moro, who had not expected France to put so many resources into the expedition, found himself in a worrisome situation as Louis of Orleans pressed claims for his title. In the spring of 1495, the League of Venice was formed to contrast the hegemony of France in Italy, which was formed by Spain, Milan, Venice, the Emperor, the Pope, and other minor Italian states.
That's crazy, bro. What is this, bro? Like pre-Napoleonic Wars? Like, like Napoleonic Wars prototype. Everyone just ganging up on France, bro.
Habsburg and Alexander VI did not contribute. Worried about being blocked in southern Italy, Charles decided to return to France and left the kingdom on the 20th of May, leaving behind half of his force with the task of defending Naples. He reached Rome, which the Pope had left, and continued north, passing Siena and Pisa, keeping the Tuscan fortresses to the dismay of the Florentines. He sent part of his army to Liguria, accompanied by the same Genoese exiles the Neapolitans had sent the prior year, with the hopes of starting a rebellion there. At the same time, Louis of Orleans defeated a small force sent to screen him, and conquered Novara with a force of 10,000 men, and then attempted to take Vigevano, but was besieged at Novara by a Milanese force of 40,000 men. Charles continued his march, and after sacking Pontremoli, he crossed the Apennines, where he was blocked at the village of Fornovo by the assembled army of the League of Venice.
Alright, getting a battle.
The Italian army was mostly composed of condottieri hired by Venice, with only a quarter of those being Milanese, as their main force was preoccupied at Novara. They were led by the Marquis of Mantova, Gianfrancesco II Gonzaga. Sources conflict around the exact number of troops, but it seems that the army was composed of around 8,600 heavy knights, 1,500 Italian light cavalry and mounted crossbowmen, 800 stradiotti, light cavalrymen originating from the Balkans, 8,000 infantry armed both with ranged and melee weapons, and a few artillery pieces, for a total of around 20,000 men. Many nobles from Romagna, such as the leaders of Bologna, Rimini, Ferrara, and Urbino, participated as well. Charles's army at Fornovo was composed of 5,500 mounted men, distributed into a mix of heavily armoured knights, light cavalry, and mounted crossbowmen, of which 400 were Italian, 4,000 infantry, including 3,000 Swiss mercenaries, which were the spearhead of the army, and 42 cannons, armed by 1,000 men, for a total of a little over 10,000 men. The vanguards of the two armies arrived in the vicinity of Fornovo on the 1st of July, where a squadron of Italian light cavalry attacked the enemy and took some prisoners, while the French fortified their camp on the high ground. The following days, the Stradiotti continued to harass the French camp, while the complete armies arrived in the area. On the 6th of July, Charles sent an envoy to ask for free passage back to France. While the Italians argued on what to do, as the Venetian representatives did not wish to attack head-on, and bickering between the many members of the League made the command of—
Wait. Charles asked for free passage back to France, but this was an army sent to stop him, was it not? I'm so confused.
Force difficult.
I'm so confused. What? Wouldn't that answer be a no? I'm so confused. Am I missing something here? Someone comment if I'm missing something here.
Charles waded the river and marched along the northern bank, dividing his army into 3 battle groups, and assigning most of the army, the artillery, and the Swiss mercenaries to the vanguard, led by Gian Giacomo Trevuzio and the Marshal of Guiers, as they expected that they would have to cut through the enemy. Seeing the army advance, Francesco Gonzaga decided to attack. He formed up his army into 3 columns, with half of the cavalry in the front and the second half in reserve, with a considerable force left to protect the fortified camp. Gonzaga's strategy was to attack the 3 groups simultaneously, while 2 squadrons of Stradiotti and mounted crossbowmen would circle around and harass the French left flank. The battle started with an artillery duel, which was swiftly won by the French, but led to few casualties. During the night it had rained heavily, making the river Taro, usually a stream in the summer, a considerable obstacle, and the storm continued in the morning. This slowed down Gonzaga's main force in the center, as it was forced to cross the river after the left flank and delayed the attack against the center.
I feel like they're going to get completely pummeled, but let's see.
In the meantime, the right wing, composed of the Milanese knights, led by the Count of Caiazzo, attacked the vanguard, but after a single attack against the Swiss formation, they retreated back to camp. At the same time, the Stradiotti, which should have harassed the flank, soon started to loot the baggage train instead. The left and center managed to cross the river, though.
What? They're looting when there's a battle going on? Oh no, that's so dumb.
Some drowned or refused to cross. Reorganized, they charged the French rearguard, but the terrain was unsuited for a cavalry charge, and at the same time Charles had moved the center of the army back to support the rearguard. The clash against the compact French line was devastating for the Italians, who opted for a wave assault. Many of Gonzaga's soldiers deserted the clash, joining instead the looting of the baggage train and leaving the Italian main assault outnumbered.
Oh no!
The king
No. That is so, bro. They just left them for dead, basically.
was extremely close to being captured, and would have been if not for the sacrifice of the Count of Vendôme. Many Italian commanders died or were injured, including the second-in-command, Rodolfo Gonzaga, who should have signalled the reserve to advance, something that did not happen. On the Italian right,
And they're
the
gone.
infantry was cut down by the Swiss, while the reserve attempted to attack the artillery, but was also repelled. Outnumbered, Gonzaga sounded the retreat and crossed the river, where many more drowned or were killed by the French. Charles, having opened up a route back to France, decided not to chase the enemy. In just an hour, the French army lost around 1,000 men and the baggage train, which had around 300,000 ducats of valuables in it, while the Italians lost around 3,000 to 4,000 men, including many commanders. The high death toll on the Italian side was attributed to the French not taking prisoners, but killing the wounded.
Ooh. The French were brutal. Oh no! Oh no! How could the French do that?
Both sides claimed victory, as the Italians had taken the higher number of casualties and failed to block Charles, while the French lost their baggage and left the field, although modern historians give the victory to the French.
Yeah.
Charles continued to Asti, where the League army followed and then deviated to Novara, as both sides did not wish a second engagement. Charles stayed in Piedmont waiting for reinforcements and was joined by the failed expedition in Liguria. At Rapallo, part of the French fleet had been captured, while Louis of Orleans left Novara in September with the rest of his frazzled army. By October the 9th, the Peace of Vercelli was signed between France and Milan, with Ludovico turning on his Venetian allies and granting Charles the right to use Genoa as a supply base to defend Naples, and so the king returned to France. The war continued in southern Italy, and we'll cover that conflict in the next video, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please.
I agree. Make sure you subscribe and press the bell button to my channel. Alright, I'm done here. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like so my videos on the algorithm. If you have any suggestions, go comment down below and goodbye.